first time, BW and Johnston, and we're running your content program there, and in quite a different way to what Johnston was doing before with the old bookstore. So yeah, interested to know how we and this scheme has fit into your strategic goals, and what are the sort of the most appealing things to you about working with BW?
Well, kind of two things I would say. Our first strategic goal and our strategic plan is to connect with our students from the first day on campus. And I could not hand over my heart say that our bookstore was helping us to do that. The prices in the bookstore for everything were just really, they were just too rich for our students' blood mostly. And this is true. I mean, bookstores exist, especially when you're working with a private vendor, to make money. They were making a great deal of money from our students, and we thought that that's probably not the business model we wanted to continue with. I didn't want to see the bookstore, the college cafeteria, or any of those auxiliary services as a way for us to make additional money from our students. But instead, I challenged the college to see those things as ways that we serve our students, and that they should be things that help to drive retention, not increased revenue. So that's kind of an important shift, I think. So we're going to be running, the on-site bookstore ourselves. I think we take that over next week. And we will exist to make sure that students can get Johnston County Community College hats and T-shirts and all kinds of things that say JCC on them at prices that will encourage them to buy extras for their friends and wear them all over the county, so that it's a place where students will come because they're happy to be students at JCC, and that's that. The connecting with students from day one, obviously students don't always get their financial aid on time. Many of our students are first generation students, almost half, and many of our students are Pell eligible, which means that the price of things, even though we're very reasonable, the price of things can be a burden for many students. So students who don't have their books on the first day of class are at risk. Period. We've known that for a long time. So this model appeals to me and frankly all of our faculty as well, because we can be assured that when students sign up for a class, when they open up their LMS, there it is. There are all their materials from the first day. If they do a drop-in ad, as soon as they sign back into Blackboard, there's their new class, there's their new text and other materials. And that's all there is to it. And not only is it there from day one, but it's there at a price which is much more reasonable than what we're paying for the print books.
It's super interesting to learn a bit more about that Vern. We spoke a bit about it in North Carolina when I was with you recently, but also interesting to hear how you really kind of looked at the bookstore and the content and the swag and thought about, well, actually, what am I trying to solve for? Is it revenue or is it other things? And I hadn't actually thought of, because swag as well is often a profit center or revenue generator, but I hadn't really thought about what you've just said there, where actually you'd be willing to sell it at very affordable prices in order to just get it out there and get your brand and get it worn all over the county, and I'm sure more broadly around the state and the country. So that's a really interesting avenue. And then we do have customers that like yourselves are more interested in getting the affordability to the lowest, to kind of the highest point, I guess, the lowest possible price, and driving retention and engagement rather than making significant revenue off the content too. So really interested to learn that. We did a study with Jackson recently to look at the impact on the GPA and retention rates, and the correlations were really positive, and definitely something we'd be really interested in exploring and researching with you guys, the impact of BW there as well. I'll hand over to you, Mila.
Thanks, Dave. Great. So Vern, you mentioned faculty. It's interesting you said that your faculty is on board with Biblia Universal Learning. That's really great. It's not always the case with any institutional change. So how did you do it?
Well, I mean, it's a pilot for the first semester, so we were intentional in picking faculty who like to be the first kid on the block to drive the new toys. But also these are the people who are, influencers on campus, who will really want to tell other people what's working when we try something new. The other thing though that has really helped is that many of our faculty are already using a great deal of digital resources. Mm-hmm. That's a change that happened probably because of the pandemic. It just made it a lot more convenient, and so they're already kind of used to it. So I think we're just in a good place in our history here to kind of do something like this. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that they're very sensitive to the price of materials for the students. The nursing students especially are paying thousands of dollars for their texts. So when I told our board of trustees what the likely costs for our nursing students alone would be with this program, they wanted to know why we hadn't done it years ago.
That's wonderful. And so, like I said, it's not always the case. And I think the presidents that are listening to this podcast could learn from you on, how you were able to kind of evangelize universal learning into your faculty. It's always the benefit of a phased approach where you build a set of advocates or a group of advocates, or even with demonstrated success before you go full scale. So it's great you're doing that. So Dave mentioned earlier, you have a storied and really admirable career in academia. I've known you since you were at Lincoln Land, where you were the VP of Academic Affairs. And so you have this unique perspective, and would love to hear from you from a president's and a provost's perspective. What do you think will be the role of the campus store in the next 3 to 5 years? And how can college leaders leverage the campus store in promoting student success? You kind of alluded to it earlier, but can you elaborate a little bit more, please?
Sure. Well, the horse we're betting on is that I think colleges are going to see their bookstores as ways to help to retain students, not as ways to make additional money from their students. So partners that help them to do that, I think, will be moving their strategic goals forward. All of us have at the top of our strategic plans recruiting and retaining our students and making sure that our students are successful. We phrase them in different ways, but those are the big three. Mm-hmm. And the bookstore really plays an integral role in making sure that those things happen. If students can't afford their course materials and don't get them on day one, they're not going to be successful. If they're not successful, they're not going to stay. So it I think is not even a good business model to say, well, I'm going to make X amount of dollars from each student who comes through my bookstore. If the students don't stay, you're not going to make any money from them. So it is just, I think, probably short-sighted to see some of your auxiliary services in that way. Four-year campuses are different. They have to have auxiliary revenues to keep their campuses open. Community colleges are more frugal and way more nimble. Mm-hmm. So I think it really would behoove all of us to think about all of our auxiliary services at top of that list, the bookstore, to make sure that it really is doing everything that it can do to move the strategic plan of the college forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lindquist. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and we look forward to our continued partnership.